What's up, everybody? Welcome inside another episode of Chillin With Chillot. My name is TJ Chillot, play-by-play broadcaster, and through my many years of calling games in hockey in some of the best states and some of the best places all over the country, I've met some incredible people who have some fascinating stories. And today, episode number 4, I've got my good friend, former pro hockey goaltender, Keegan Asmundson. Keegs, it's been a long time, buddy. How are you? Cheers, my man.
Cheers. Good to see you. I guess I wish I could say the same about friendship. No, just joking. It's been good on my end, getting used to life as a normal civilian, they call it now, and got a good life going back home in Minnesota with fiance and dog and house and everything, fun stuff. So excited to finally be on with the man, the myth, the legend, TJ Chillot.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun, man. Our lives like kind of crossed a little bit before we got to Austin together. For the listeners and the viewers out there who are tuning in, Keegs, you and I, we got to know each other through one season with the Austin Bruins. I was there for 3 years, you were there for 1 year, and there was so much that went on in that single season that we jam-packed. That was right before COVID. COVID had ended the year early. You would think that for 90% of a season, instead of having a full season, that we would have gotten less, I don't want to say accomplished, but we would have less stories coming out of that year. But we probably have more stories in that single year. But our actual first, I don't want to call it a connection, but our first tie would have been 2 years before you came to Austin, when I was in the SPHL with the Mississippi RiverKings. And we talked on this podcast a couple weeks ago with George Lopez, our equipment manager, and one of the questions that I asked him was, do you remember our last game? And we talked about our last game when the Mississippi RiverKings were eliminated by the Huntsville Havoc in that first round of the playoffs. Do you remember who was in goal for the Huntsville Havoc for that game? I'm still mad at you about this.
Yeah, I know I was in there for the series, and I think Mike De Laverne was in there for a bit too. My only memory of that series, I think game 1 started, and there was like games supposed to start at 7 or 5, whatever time it was, and we see the ice before, and I was like, water looks pretty wet out there. And they're like, we're gonna try and get ice is fine. We'll push it back an hour. I was like, there's no chance we're gonna play this game tonight. But it was like, I think it was at your game, then back for ours for 2.
That's right.
So we had no toiletries, no change of clothes at all. In typical SP fashion, you said, we're going to stay in a hotel tonight, so you have no contact solution, nothing at all for it. But hey, that's the gritty part of the SP playoffs, I guess, for game 1 start.
And I guess that's the only way that we earned that victory because, yeah, game 1 was in South Haven, Mississippi. There was a problem with the ice plant. Something had broken, and the way the schedule was set up, that game 1 was on one night, there was a day off, and then 2 would have been the next night. And then, if necessary, game 3, because it was just a 3-game series, it would have been the very following night. Game 1 in Mississippi, 2 in Huntsville, 3, if necessary, in Huntsville. So that's kind of how they had it scheduled. We had that buffer day. So with the ice plant going down and going underwater, so to speak, they fly in the part overnight. They fix the ice rink. We go out. The RiverKings win game number 1. And then game number 2, have you guys on the ropes, give up a 2-goal lead in the third period. Y'all come back, win the game in overtime, and then put us out of our misery the very next night. And then you ultimately go on to win the President's Cup that year. What was it like lifting the cup? Was that your only championship in your career? Because we're going to dive into where you've been, where you've played, but was that your only championship?
Only championship as a starting goalie that I've won. I've been fortunate to have been on a couple teams. A year prior, I was on a championship team over in Germany, and then I won 2 in college, 1 for hockey, 1 for lacrosse. But man, that year in Huntsville was a blast. I didn't really want to go down to the SP coming from the coast and, Division I background, but I wanted to prove I could be a starting goalie. And that was really the only option to kind of go and prove I can play and just play for, one season, one location, not just bounce around here or there for the different type of minor league goalie lifestyle. So Glenn DeTulio and Jesse Clucky, they gave me kind of a shot, said, hey, if you guys buy me gear and give me a chance to play, I'll come down and I'll turn down call-ups. I'll be here there for the full year. And we had a great group, man. There was a bunch of good guys. Some guys were in the coast, some guys from college who I knew from previous. I'm sure some of their names will come up later when we talk about the drinking stories and the different kind of bar games we've played. But that was the most fun I've had in pro hockey, and been able to kind of go to guys' bachelor parties, go to guys' weddings, still stay in contact in the group chat we've had, on Snapchat for however long now. It's been a fun memory, and the cool part was my mom, my grandma, my grandpa were able to actually go to the final series. If we were playing in Peoria, then back to Huntsville, back to Peoria. I think we won game 1, had a chance to win game 2 at home. I gave up a bad glove side goal, which I typically did in my career, couldn't catch anything. So, and then we drove back down to Peoria, and my grandparents and mom made the trip back and forth, and we won in Peoria on the road, and my mom, my grandma, and my grandpa got to drink out of the cup. It was kind of a cool, moment to share with your family as they've experienced the whole ride, from when you couldn't skate as a kid down to, playing at 28 years old when I finally retired. So it was a cool moment to share, and yeah, definitely memorable to have forever. And I'm thankful that we got to start with knocking you out of the playoffs there. So ultimate bragging rights, I think now.
I got to imagine, though, that's probably the best part of your professional career, not knocking me out of the playoffs. But as a guy who's colloquially known as a suitcase, who travels every year, you're in 2 or 3 different cities at a time, it's hard to get your family to see you where you're at, because I would imagine, like, hey, if you got a call up to the ECHL, you don't know how long you're going to be there. You don't know where it is. You don't know what's going on. So your family, are they're in North Dakota, Minnesota mostly?
Yep, some North Dakota, Minnesota for the most part, some in Canada too. So, and there's been numerous times where we've had travel booked and then flights packed, and then, hey, just got sent down or just got traded. So you can still go there if you want and watch the game, but I'm not going to be there. So that was kind of the hard part. So I think for the most part, they just kind of watched online is the best option and the most realistic, safe option for me not having to pound more miles on the car driving to the next destination.
Well, when you were in Huntsville, they were listening to the venerable Steve Moulton, who to this day still a good friend. I chat with him every now and then. He's a veteran of the Huntsville sports talk world. So, Steve, if you're out there tuned in, let's catch up. Let's catch up. But you brought this up, so we're going to dive into it. Like I told you before we went on, there's no structure here. There's no A and B question and answer. You brought it up. We're diving into it. So let's talk about Austin, Minnesota. So I'm there for what was my second year at the time, second of 3 years, and here comes Keegan Asmundson as the new assistant coach. Now, Keegs, you had played in Austin in juniors for 1 season as well, so you were a little familiar with the town and the rink and all that stuff, and you brought up the bar games and you brought up the drinking, because when I talked a little bit earlier about some of the things that we had packed into that year that wasn't exactly a full year, I think 90% of them revolve around how much fun we had outside of the rink, let alone some of the successes we had at the rink. What are some of your biggest memories from that year in Austin, whether it was hanging out with myself and Kenny Orlando, Steve Howard, or what is it?
100%. It was, I think our first encounter, you met me and you were like, you know what? I don't like this guy. I had bad memories not going to playoffs, but then after like having a beer or two, you're like, you know what? Keegs isn't that bad.
All right. Deep down, the bristles on the back of my neck were up when I first met you, but I wasn't planning on carrying a grudge. It didn't mean that much to me because I was only in Mississippi for a year, and then the team went. So it was like, all right, fine, so you move on. But yeah,
that was a cool cross pass again, and I think how that year worked out. I came onto the staff a little later than normal. And Kenny Orlando was there as well too. So you and Kenny were tight from the back home connection. So it was cool that there were just guys my age who I could get along with and be able to bounce ideas off or go get dinner and have some drinks with. Steve was a great head coach to learn from as well too, and we had some good times as well at the bars. But yeah, it's kind of one of those things where lunch turns into dinner, turns into watching NFL for 12 hours and playing pool for 12 hours. And
right.
You're like, how am I going to get home tonight? So that was a lot of fun, a lot of time in Austin. Great people, and that's probably the coolest part. Like when I was playing pro, a big thing that I wanted to do, and even in college, is if you're a radio guy, if you are a trainer, if you are our equipment manager, like we're all one team together. Let's hang out together. We're all doing the same thing. Why there's no need to discredit people and missing out on team fun. Might as well bring everyone on board.
Yeah, for sure. And I think back to those days, and I think fondly when I think of Austin and I think of Keegan Asmundson, I think fondly of the Bakery Lounge, which is a bar. I know it sounds like a bakery, but it was called the Bakery Lounge, and we spent so many hours there shooting pool, playing darts, because it's a small town, especially in those winters in Minnesota where it was negative whatever and it's frozen and your beard is starting to get, crystals and icicles on it. There's not much to do. So you spend a lot of time in bars, and boy, we really did. We played a lot of pool. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wish I could say I won a couple games against you, but there might have been one hand. So TJ is the pool shark that I learned and got to kind of get lessons from and give tips on, and I'm a little bit better at darts, but still didn't win many games in that either too. So I might have had better luck in pull tabs. For those who don't know, pull tabs is a good Minnesota game. That was probably Hoot and Oli's spot when I was getting dinner on Thursdays when he would cook, call a joke for dinner. But no, it's just great people to be around and fun atmospheres and times. And Wouldn't be the same if you go back without those same people that were there when you were going there a couple years ago. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I wish we'll definitely need a rematch and pull some darts here sometime soon in the future.
We're going to have to make that happen. I don't know, maybe I'll get to a Wild game, or maybe you find yourself down here in the Southeast U.S., and we'll have to make it happen. I got humbled real quick when I played a handful of locals in pool. I've been playing for a long time. I started playing when I was like 10. I was shooting in tournaments and stuff when I was a teenager and early in college. So I thought I was all, hot shit and that I could take people on. And your average bar goer, yeah, I would have no problem with. But then, you meet a couple of people like Chad Thomas or some of these guys, and they just absolutely bend me over. And it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, exactly.
They're bringing their own cues in. You're like, I'm in trouble.
Exactly. Well, I'm one of those guys. I have a few of them actually in the garage. My girlfriend found one the other day. She's like, picks up this big leather case. And she's like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, that's my pool cues. And she's like, several? Yeah, don't worry about it. It's not a shotgun. Just put it back. It back. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. I think of those nights, and I think of Hootenolies. You never got the chance to see his crawfish boil, did you? Because you did come in late. Not. Oh man, that was
came in late, missed the crawfish boil, and no, I think the cool kind of rivalry we had is you were an Eagles fan.
Yep.
I was Vikings and a Bills fan. So went to school in Buffalo. Other ownership was kind of fans of different teams too. So whenever those games would match up, it was kind of like the internal side bet, or just to talk smack to the guy for an extended period of time until ultimately one team loses. Then you just feel bad for making fun of them for losing, and then do it again the next weekend when your team loses. So that was kind of the fun, carry over into Monday in the rink when you go in the office. People kind of acting sad or whatever, and then pulling like the game-winning jersey out. It was kind of a fun culture we had down there for sure.
Yeah. What was your favorite city that we would go to on the road? Do you remember? I mean, when you're talking about whether it was Aberdeen, whether it was St. Cloud, and it could be because of personal reasons, or it could just be the environment or the atmosphere. Do you remember which one was your favorite place to go to?
I think mine was cool because they had some nice bars. No, just joking. Obviously,
they had that barn or whatever it was across the way, right?
Yeah,
the red barn.
Usually wherever the closest bar was, easiest to get to is the nice road city. But no, I think the division we played in, there was awfully a lot of cool rinks. Cloquet was always a cool rink, but that was just really cold year round.
That place.
Bismarck, Minot, same thing, just frozen almost year round. So those trips kind of stunk. But my favorite trip, whenever we would cross the North Dakota border, just letting everyone know that we're in God's country, because that's where I was born, and just to see the stern looks in the face, like, what did you just say? And I'm like, you heard me. Especially the bus driver, he'd be like, start laughing in my face. So can't talk too much smack because I'm from there and that's home-ish, but it's thankful to kind of, go bounce around to the minors and the bus rides. And the bus we had wasn't as nice as the ones we had in the SP or in the coast. So it's kind of a little adjustment, but there's some advantages to play in every town and some different crowds that kind of get going, and different environments for sure. It was always Aberdeen is probably one of the better ones environments too, when your crowds are right on you, and kind of as a coach, you don't get to feel like you're in the game as much as you do as a player. So it's a little weird to get used to, but you can still give it to people if they're giving it to you, I guess.
Aberdeen was probably one of my favorites. I hated playing there because I don't think we won more than twice. The time that I was there, I remember a Jed Pietla overtime winner as one of the only games we ever won in Aberdeen at that time. But I really liked the downtown atmosphere, between going to, I can remember the names of the different bars, whether it was Loggers, where you'd get Chislicks, which is a very regional delicacy. It's bacon wrapped tri-tips on a skewer, which was phenomenal. I'm really surprised that hasn't gone nationwide at this point. Or if we're going to Circus, remember how good those wings are? Not Circus. That's the bar in Vegas. It was just Circus. Those wings were fantastic. I really liked Aberdeen, but those rides on the bus were so long, and it was not, like you said, those buses were not anything like what we had in the SB, which were sleeper buses, and pretty much you
could actually plug your phone in and get a charge and not have your battery die.
Those rides, the close, you'd get your close ones. We'd go and play Richfield, which was like an hour and a half just outside of Minneapolis or something like that. But for a lot of them, Aberdeen was 6 hours. Minot was 10 to 12, depending on how many times we'd stop. And I swear, I had my whole little setup. I had my iPad mini. I'd watch movies. Every time we crossed that border, you'd get my attention. I'd have to pull my headphones out, and you're like, hey, God's country. And I was like, son of a I swear to God, I'm going to just reach across. I don't care that you're 6'5". I won't beat the shit out of you if you tell me about God's country one more time. But those rides were really tough. But you were pretty well versed, in long bus rides, in your playing career. How did you get started in terms of becoming a pro goaltender? What was the process there?
So I guess to become a goalie, I tried out as a player, and they're like, "Hey, you're so bad. Like if you come back, you gotta play goalie. Like you can't play forward or D anymore. You're that bad." So
Why were you bad?
um,
Why were you bad is my question. Were you a bad
I don't
skater?
know
Did you have
that
bad vision?
everything.
Just
I was a righty holding a left stick. Probably was wearing a football jersey.
how
Just everything that could have gone wrong would have
how
been it.
big were you at this point? Because I
I
just
was
mentioned
small.
you're 6'5", so like, was your
Yeah.
size becoming a problem or?
No, I was small until probably like eighth grade. I grew 5 inches. The next year I grew 4 inches. So I grew late and I was kind of a late bloomer. So I had Bambi feet. So that was kind of where I was a big frame, but I didn't really fill out until junior hockey. So started playing goalie and squares my first ever game, got a shutout, and I was like, oh, okay, I might be good at this. And then just kind of learned through goalie camps and the ranks and went up. Had the opportunity to go play Division One over at Buffalo, New York, Canisus College, and I wanted to play lacrosse too, so that was a school I could do both at. Had a good career there, and made the jump into pro. First pro debut was with South Carolina Stingrays. I forget at the time if it was 20 something or 25 games.
I think it was
They're like
21. I want to say it was
21,
21.
something. Okay, 21 games. It was one of those where like, yeah, you're playing tomorrow. I was like, beg your pardon. I'm like, no, I'm not. And they're like, no, you're gonna play. And I'm like, shit. So, and it was in Indianapolis, and all I wanted to do was play pro hockey. So I was like, I got a pro game under my belt. Unfortunately, lost 3-2. I didn't play bad. They just kind of, it was a long win streak. And then it's a tough locker room to walk back into. We never lost a game in 3 months. And you're the new guy. And you're just like, why did we start him? And I'm one of the same questions. But
Did you sleep
we
with
went
one
to
eye open the entire bus ride home from
oh,
from Indy down to South Carolina, just waiting for
well,
someone?
we went. It got worse. So we went from. I came off like a 10-day bender in college because I wasn't sure like where I was going to play, if I was going back to school or not.
So
And they
you get the
called me
call
like,
from South Carolina off a bender,
yeah,
and then they're like, "Hey, by the way, you're going in. We just won 20 straight. Don't this up for us." And you're like,
yep. Haven't
"Gotcha."
haven't skated, haven't practiced in 10 days. Like, okay, this is going to go well. This is pro hockey. So I flew in, met the team in Indianapolis. They played Toledo the night before. I haven't even thought of these stories in forever long, but they played Toledo the night before. On Friday, they won in overtime. So I was like, damn, I wish they would have lost. So it wasn't, an easy game. Saturday, we lost 3-2. Then I slept on the floor in the bus to go to Evansville the next night for the 3-3, which the joys that those are,
Oh yeah.
for an afternoon game. They ended up winning, so I got a shutout in the games, 2-0 to 1-0, 3-0, whatever it was. But I was able to get the win and get the first pro win on the road, and just apologize for the guys for losing again the night before.
How many
And kind of
shots
go
did
from
you
there.
face in that loss?
Couldn't tell you. At least 30, 20. It was respectable numbers. Like I didn't
Okay.
play bad. I didn't get scored on from the red line or anything bad like that. It was just kind of one of those games where you're not sure what you're walking into. You're seeing cheerleaders for the first time, and you're seeing flames and the pyros that minor league WWE style is in the coast, and you're just kind of like, all right, this is pro hockey. So, but definitely a cool thought. I haven't thought about that in a long time, so it's cool to go down memory lane too a little bit and just remember how much I was hated for about 24 hours in that locker room.
How many different sweaters have you worn over the years officially? I mean, because
Ooh.
unofficially, if you look at like your elite prospects page, they have you, rostered with the San Antonio Rampage, even though you never played a game and things like that. How many different jerseys do you think you've worn? And do you have any of them or do you keep them?
I got a couple of them. The only one I really I have my college one, and I have the one from Huntsville because those are the years that I played full time on. There's definitely a lot of people in the minor league circuits who have some Asmundson jerseys around. Got a great deal on them, I'm sure too, for the jersey auctions. So if they're out there, I can give you some autographs if you need, but I might devalue it even more because I'm not playing. But if I had to guess, I think my first year I was on maybe 6 or 7 teams. Don't know if I played games in all the spots. Second year, same thing. I gifted my Germany jersey to a family friend, so that was kind of a cool one to give out. And then third year was Huntsville. Fourth year I was kind of bounced around. So it wasn't a great collection or bragging rights because you kind of bounce around. But the good side is I got to meet a lot of really cool people that I never probably would have had the experience to do it. Multiple times, multiple towns, kind of learn a lot about small pieces of the country that you wouldn't have seen. I got to go over to Germany and get paid to travel the world a little bit. And so, yeah, I guess to put a number on it, that'd be a good trivia question. If someone can find it out, let me know, and I'd be surprised at the number, but I'm guessing it's up there.
We could look that up on Elite Prospects or Hockey DB and just not count the years where you were rostered and didn't play a game. I'm sure we could figure that out. But I do want to talk a little bit about Germany, since we talked about it a little bit, because that was towards the end of your career, right? You know, you come out of Canisus, you bounce around ECHL, SPHL, you go to Germany, and then I think that was right before you came back to the SPHL, right? Something along those lines?
So I did turn pro. The first year I was in the coast, down a little bit. The second year I was in the coast, and I went to Germany, I believe. Year 3 was Huntsville. Year 4 was the coast, and then I was done after my 4th year. But Germany was cool, man. It was I went over at the deadline, so I think that was like January 1st. I don't remember when the deadline was, but 3 months left in the season. I was in 4 weddings the next summer, the following summer, that I had to pay for somehow, and it was in Calgary, Alberta, and Buffalo, New York, Minnesota for 2. I was the best man for 2, so I'm like, I gotta find a way to pay for all these things. And it was an opportunity to go over to Germany. I got nice finishing salary for the season. We got some good playoff bonuses, so I just I only played in the game and I dressed for 2, a couple of them, but we had a lot of cool imports over there. I think they had 4 imports for the rule, and then there was a couple Canadian Germans that had like the non-import card for it. So there's a lot of English-speaking people on the team. The coach spoke English, so that part was cool. But yeah, it was a different style of hockey. The soccer atmosphere, cheers. That was a unique piece that I'll remember forever. And cool culture to live. It's a lot more relaxed over there. The beers are cheaper than water at restaurants too, which is kind of the case. I remember if you buy this beer, I might pronounce it wrong, but it's called Ottinger beer over in Germany, which is like equivalent of Busch Light over here. You get, I think, 24.5 liter bottles for, like, at the time, €6 and 33 cents euros, or whatever that is, $6.33 for euros, whatever it is. You turn the bottles in the case back, you get €3 back. So you get 24 beers for like $3. And you're just like, what is going on? And they're good stuff, like not just the cheap ones, but so that was kind of the cool thing. And then yeah, man, the Germans definitely know how to get after it and have some fun, and definitely a good time and a good experience for sure.
A lot of guys like to go to Europe, at one point in their career, especially career minor leaguers or guys coming towards the twilight years. And I have heard that a lot of it has to do with money, and you get paid decent amount of money because those European leagues, whether it's the DEL, DEL2, or the SHL, or what have you, they have a lot of backing because it's just such a fervent sport over there that people just love it. It's like having multiple levels of the NFL here. Like if that were to exist, like there's just money rolling in hand over fist. So it's cool to hear that from that kind of standpoint, that not only does the money travel further, but you get a little bit more money. But ultimately, you did end up coming back home to the States.
Yep. Yeah. I came back home. When you go to the grocery store and need a contact solution, you're playing a game of charades, taking your glasses off, pointing at your eye, pointing at the bottle. In your non-English speaking village, that kind of gets old after a while. But yeah, so I came back, went to Huntsville that following year, won the championship there, and then wanted to keep playing one more year. Bounced around between Kalamazoo and Tulsa, and then I actually got the backup one game in San Antonio. Shout out to Jack Marquardt, equipment manager down there. He's in St. Louis now. He's my equipment manager in college. So it was cool. You got to kind of see different people along the ways, or, check in and kind of say, I know someone playing the other team. So that was there. And then at the end of that year, my body couldn't really do it anymore. I actually played my last game against Idaho Steelheads, I think, and I beat Ryan Farringer, who I fought in juniors and almost fought that game too in a line brawl. So it was a kind of a weird tie-in to start up juniors to end of pro hockey career that no one else really get besides you and me, as far as that name and the tie-in for it,
or anybody in Austin, because that is it's a legend in Austin, Minnesota. That it was a goalie fight. He was Minnesota Wilderness, right?
Bismarck Bobcats, I think, is where he was at, and then it was in Bismarck when it happened, and then he played in St. Cloud after. My buddy Kent Anderson, my best friend from growing up, he went to St. Cloud, and he just, I hate this guy because Keegan fought him. It was kind of a cool little rivalry we had back and forth. And he had a good career too. He played in the minors for a little years, and then ultimately my body couldn't do it anymore. I had wrist surgery after my 3rd year pro. My hip kind of gave up at the end of the year, and you're just like, I can't do it anymore. You want to keep going. You have the brains for it. You have the drive for it, but your body gives up. So I was able to kind of transition into coaching, and then met you, and our lives haven't been the same yet since.
Have you ever come close to fighting in your pro career, in your college career? Obviously, probably not college because they really frown upon that. But did you ever come close? Like, was there ever time you skated out to the blue line and looked down the ice like, let's go?
Yeah. once or twice you're there, but when you're the new guy for the most part, you're like, this guy is insane. You're more trying to win the game to get good
Yeah,
stats to
that's
play
true.
the next weekend. So
That's
it's
true.
kind of I wish it happened more, but being 6'5", 235 playing, you don't have many takers either in the goalie field. So I understand that side too. But no, it's definitely had a passion for it. My grandpa actually played pro hockey for a number of years, and he was a fighter and tough guy. So I kind of have that in the DNA. But being as big as I was as a goalie is probably just a waste of a body at some side of it. So, and no more fights now in the real world, but that's just the hockey side. So, even though as much as you want to in normal America, just punch someone in the face, you can't just get 5 in a game for it. You gotta, that'd be a lawsuit or something else. So
For sure, for sure. And I think what a lot of people don't realize, because you brought up a good point, you're worried about the stats, right? And I think a lot of people, and correct me if I'm wrong because I've never been a pro hockey player, but a lot of people just assume that a call up is just an automatic promotion. Like if you could equate it to something in the day-to-day life, it's like a promotion. Like, okay, you're going to be bumped up, you're going to make more money, and now you've got a new job. But it's really not like that. It's more of a, when you're getting called up that your time frame is short. Like, okay, I'm only up here for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks because the current guy is hurt. Once he's healthy, I'm going back down. So when you're up there, as a goalie, it's not like, let's just go out there and mix it up and do stuff to draw attention to myself so people are like, well, maybe we should keep him around, because you're just kind of like, all I got to do is make sure that I put good numbers on paper so that the next opportunity, if a different team needs to make a call up, I'm the first one on their minds. Or next season when I go to some training camps and then league up, I can have a good training camp, and then they look back at my numbers from last year. They go, oh, that's pretty good. And that's how you eventually become a full-time ECHL or AHL or NHL for that matter. Am I kind of right?
Exactly, you're dead on. Yeah, it's when you get called up from coast to the A or A to NHL, it's a little different when you're on NHL contracts or two-way deals. But as a coast player, you kind of mind your P's and Q's, be a good teammate, and if you get thrown in with 10 minutes left in the third in a 5-0 game, like that's your chance to
what you're there
some
for.
Good stats. You know what you're there for. Like try and clean it up, try and play well. So then if that way a team goes down, across the league or the next weekend, they have a reference point of, oh yeah, he's a big guy, he can play well, X, Y, Z. When you play well, things become easy. When you don't play well, that's when the phone stops ringing, and they really, kind of, it depends on the shuffle of the minor league goalies and who goes up, who goes down. So yeah, to say I lived in the transaction waiver wire every week, every day was kind of a false statement, but you needed to know what was there. And then, you're not only playing just for the team you're on, but also kind of an interview for the rest of the league. You might need a goalie, and, if you're not a good person or not a good teammate, you're not going to get those calls. And that's what I wanted to pride myself on being is, be a guy that goes to the bar with the boys, because, it might be over tomorrow, and hey, might as well have fun while you can during your career now.
Did you find it harder or easier as a goalie to make those moves up and down? And what I mean by that is, like, there's 12 plus forwards on a team. There's 6 plus defensemen. So more guys could get hurt, more call-ups could happen. Whereas with goalies, there's only 2 per team for the most part. And one of those guys goes down, you're immediately called up, but you're getting sent back down. Do you think it's easier or harder as a goalie to go up and down a level? Or do you think it's kind of on par with the defensemen and the forwards, just looking at it with the sheer numbers?
Yeah, I think it depends. I'd say probably it might be easier as a forward or defenseman to go up, but you're probably playing 5 or 6 D-man minutes or third line, 10th forward minutes. So you're probably not getting in the groove, which is the same as a goalie. Like when I was playing well in college, I was getting in the groove, and I was the guy. I was playing Friday, Saturday nights. It's easy to tie games together. When you're getting thrown in for a Sunday afternoon game in, Evansville or wherever, where the guys are on a 3-3 and it's a long bus ride home, you're not probably getting the best, defense as a whole. Say not to bury anyone, that's just kind of what it is. So you're kind of on your own to steal a game and win a game. Those are the easier ones. The ones that I really hated was when you were the starting goalie in the coast team, the other goalie gets called up, they have to get E-Bug in. Now, E-Bug is a great story for the NHL, and I applaud it, but in the minors it's different. The E-Bugs in the coast is most likely a bus driver who's smoking cigarettes and can't tie his shoes or can't go in, or a
assistant equipment manager,
assistant
or
equipment manager.
Yeah.
Well, former goalie, assistant equipment manager, same thing. But yeah, my last weekend in pro hockey, we had a bartender in Boise, Idaho, who was serving us drinks Friday, Saturday night, and then he'd back up. And I was like, what is going on here? So those are the games where, like, if I give up 5 in the first, like, I'm not getting pulled. There's no one else to help me out. You're kind of on your own. Those are the tough games. You're like, all right, we need one here, kind of those things. But it's all looking back. It's all fun. All cool. You got to say you done it. But yeah, definitely. Some teams are better than others, and there's a lot of good guys in the minors, man. A lot of good guys in hockey that made it easy to come in and just play well. And if you prove yourself, you can play, and you're a good dude, and guys like you, they'll run through a wall for you.
How many former teammates, former coaches are you still in contact with every day? How many are you, just shooting the shit with, texting, Snapchatting, whatever?
Yeah, good amount. I say those Huntsville guys I talk to quite a bit. I'm in a fantasy football league with my college buddies, so probably
Nice.
once that gets going, it kind of comes around. But honestly, man, it's I still follow the guys who are still playing. I played with. There's not as many now as there was a couple of years ago, but follow on Twitter, see them on Instagram. Get to try and link up with them when they're in the area. Just touch base and pick up like you never left off. So I'd say it's not as much when I was playing, but it's definitely still a good amount to bring back some good memories and laughs for sure.
What made you then want to get into coaching? After your career was over, what was like, I want to try and coach some of the youngsters and go back to where it started for you in junior hockey?
Yeah, I mean, when you're retiring, it's kind of like a lot of guys in the minors go through it where they don't know what else to do. I guess I had a degree and a master's degree to fall back on, but I also had a lot of knowledge in hockey and then being a goalie specifically. So that was kind of where it'd be almost a shame to quit cold turkey. I would have missed it. I would have tried to make some dumb comeback tour and, wouldn't have done it. So from playing to coaching was a natural kind of decelerator to my hockey bug or hockey itch. And I got to coach a lot of cool goalies along the way and still kind of have an eye for it. So I think Brett Miller's at RPI now. Tyler Shade has transferred to Brown. Zach Hansen played juniors for a bit, so I got to kind of be involved with those guys' lives and help them, go through the things I've gone through. Because you're as a goalie, you're kind of by yourself alone on an island that no one really gets to it. You can't complain to your buddies back home because it's like, oh, you're playing pro hockey, or are you doing this? And like,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
I just got bag skated for an hour before practice. We practiced, I got bag skated afterwards. I'm doing that 5 days a week. So it's kind of the weird comment to say to be, selfish and mad you're doing it. But I guess the best way someone described pro hockey to me was like, it's like you're in prison. The door's wide open. You can leave whenever you want. You're doing it to yourself. There's no one forcing you to be there, So you can't complain too much because you're the person that could stop it to go. But no, it was cool to go back to Austin, get an opportunity to kind of coach and kind of where it started for me. And the game kind of got a lot softer than I remembered, and the rules changed in a different way as far as kind of the hockey that I grew up playing and doing. So that was a little different.
You're sounding like old man yells at cloud. Relax.
Yeah, I know. That's why I wanted
these
to relax.
Kids these days, they don't know how good they got it. That's what you sound like.
Coming from a goalie, I'm not mad. They just they drill the pegs. No, you can't kick the net off like I used to kick the net off. So that was the main takeaway. But that was my other cool story. Looking back into college, they drilled the pegs, and I went to kick it, and I was like, oh, can't do that. got a battle here. So I guess my infamous junior hockey career, kicking the net off, died before I went to college. So
that's insane. Well, I think back to that year in Austin and the amount of bar games that I learned, and they all come from you. Like that was between. I don't know if it was your college career. I don't know if it was just your overall life experience. But the amount of games that I learned how to tie into drinking all equate to Keegan Asmundson. Every single one, except for maybe one. My favorite.
I'll take that as a good thing, I guess.
My favorite was Titanic. Absolutely my favorite game. Do you remember we had stuck around Torgy's, which was the bar in town there in Austin. It was a bar restaurant attached to the hotel. They had closed, and we were teaching the bartender how to play Titanic. Do you remember this?
Yep, I do. Yep.
Awesome time. So the whole story goes is you and I think Kenny was there to start. We were playing darts in that, no, not darts. We were playing pool.
Pool in the back, those two tables.
Yep. And we were in the corner. We were playing pool, and we start drinking. We start having a great time. And all of a sudden, we wanted to play Titanic with each other. So for the uninitiated, what you need for Titanic is one traditional pint glass. You need to fill that up with a beer of your choice, preferably something that's going to mix well with a liquor, because you're going to take a traditional shot glass. Plastic worked the best, but every now and then we would find a glass that would work. And the idea is you actually balance the shot glass inside the pint glass filled with beer. And you take the bottle of liquor and you pour in as much as you want and then hand it off. And then they pour in as much as they want and hand it off. And then the next guy pours in as much. And whoever it is that sinks that shot glass all the way to the bottom, the Titanic, has to do the whole thing. So if you're doing like a Boilermaker, you could do regular beer and you could throw in some whiskey. Or if you're doing a car bomb, you could do some Guinness and throw in a little bit of Jameson. Or we were doing, I think, Fireball and Angry Orchard.
Angry Orchard beers. Yep.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. But we wanted to play that. But there's a law in Minnesota where the bartender can't legally give you the bottle on the counter. They have to pour everything, so that kind of defeats the whole thing. But when the doors close and everybody's gone, well, we went ahead and played, and those are the rules of Titanic, which I learned from you, Keegan, as well as so many others, because we had some great times, and there was a lot of good people that were hanging out with us the entire time.
Yep, and I wish I could take credit for that story, and I can't remember where on my journey at pro hockey I found it or learned it, but yeah, it's kind of just a fun game to play. And there was that one, and there's another one you can play too, where if you take a coaster from the bar, stack it on the ground, lip over the edge, and you flip it and try and catch it in the air.
That's right.
Shout out to Nolan Kaiser from Huntsville Havoc, who taught me that game. He's got to 40. I got to 35 is the most I can do. It's a funny, dumb game, but it's just kind of a way to, just bond and hang out with the guys. And I remember a lot of hockey stories, but I remember more of those bar stories that are kind of enjoyable to look back on too. And all part of just having a good time with the guys and blowing off some steam. And a lot of time in the bars as a hockey player too. So I guess kind of you get good at something you pick up on some other things too. That dice game, a lot of other ones you can mention as well.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's funny you bring up the coaster game, because that was one of the games that I knew before I met you. It's something that my stepdad kind of taught me, because when he's hanging out, if you go to like a bar or restaurant and he's just waiting for his food, he's putting the coaster on the edge of the table, he's flipping it up, trying to catch it, just kind of killing time, just, sitting there, just doing it. So I had learned that game to an extent from him, but then I see you and you're over there doing like 15 of these things. I'm just like, man, get a job.
Yeah.
Like,
I play with a lot of Western Canadians who are pretty good at drinking too. So you kind of learn the games from there, and then bring them back to your own place, and then share that knowledge with everyone else. But the Titanic's probably the crowd favorite, easiest to play, and it brings more people to the group you're playing with, and they want to have fun too. And it's a good, never a bad time or a bad night when you're playing Titanic at the bar with TJ for sure. So
Keeks, one thing too that I remember from our time in Austin is your love for lacrosse. I remember being at like particularly the Old Mill, the really nice fancy steak restaurant, and I think it was towards the end of that season, and there was a lacrosse game that was just on ESPN3 or whatever, and we're at the bar, we're all enjoying a couple of drinks, it was like a Friday night, we didn't have a game, or maybe it was during is there going to be the end of the season or is there not, and here's Keegan just kind of zoned out watching Fordham and God knows who or whatever it was. You mentioned earlier you went to Canisus because of the fact that they had hockey and lacrosse. Which is your more favorite sport?
Honestly, that's a great question. I'd say probably 51-49 in favor of lacrosse, just because.
Wow. Okay.
It's I was better at playing lacrosse, but ultimately kind of hockey had a better pathway to go into pro career. And yeah, I walked onto the lacrosse team. I hadn't played lacrosse in 3 years. I was actually number one face-off guy in the state of Minnesota my senior year of high school. Had offers to go play college, chose to go play juniors. Played in one scrimmage in 3 years with my brother in the summertime, who also played lacrosse, and then walked onto the team. And I played long stick D or close D. So basically just the big goon, hit guys, not trying to score goals, not trying to do anything, trying to hurt people is my kind of goal for it. So you could really line guys up and take some people's heads off, and it was a fun moment. So I think every college year, every year, there's a big tournament for the NCAA tournament. So it's kind of, the underdogs and, against the Dukes, the Virginias, the primarily ACC conference school teams. And Canisus, we were the underdogs, a small school. We actually made the NCAA tournament my freshman year. I didn't play at all, but I got to be in the team and kind of experience that. For the following year as a hockey player, made the NCAA tournament again. Didn't play, but got to experience it again too. So, but no, lacrosse is something where I'm thankful to Randy Mearns and the guys at Canisus for kind of taking me in. It was challenging to be a two-sport athlete and balance school and balance the nights at Chippewa Street till 4 a.m. and be back for the 6 a.m. practices the next days. But no, the lacrosse culture is a great culture. The sport's fantastic. It's great for coordination. It's a great off-season sport for hockey players as well, because a lot of the athletic abilities transferred for both sports.
Yeah, I was gonna say
And
they're really similar sports in general, right? Like,
yep. The goalies in lacrosse are a lot more nuts than the goalies in hockey are because you're not wearing a lot less gear. The nets are bigger. The ball's a big rubber bouncy ball that's scooting pretty quick over 100 miles an hour. So it was awesome to play. And lacrosse is also a sport too, where if you don't know it, it's very probably confusing. If you didn't grow up playing it, you don't really know what's going on TV. So
same thing could be said about hockey, right?
Hockey, same thing, yeah. So being at a bar and seeing the game and being zoned out like I was, it was cool to kind of say, hey, these are the midfielders, these are the attack. This is kind of the basic strategy. It's kind of like chess, kind of like basketball, kind of like soccer as far as the positions and the plays and movements. A lot of transition, a lot of running, and a lot of high scoring. So it's a game of runs, and when you're watching it or you're betting it and having beers, with your buddies watching the games, it's very easy to get excited for it and then let down. It's kind of an emotional roller coaster all the way through. So I was better at lacrosse than I was at hockey, which isn't saying much, but I guess there's definitely a sweet spot in the lacrosse world for sure.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because, you clued us in on what position you were playing and different things like that, because I immediately was sitting here thinking, all right, he's a hockey goalie, he's got to be a lacrosse goalie, right? But no, he's you're a defenseman, a long stick defenseman, a goon, as you so put it, which is fantastic. Do you think that, first of all, what hurts more if you just get slammed right in the flesh? A rubber puck or that, I guess it's rubber ball? Which one really kind of left the sting if you got hit right in the flesh?
The puck hurts 10 out of 10 times way more.
Really?
That the puck doesn't have any bounce or give to it, and it's 1 inch by 3 inches of vulcanized rubber. That's a good callback for the broadcasters.
I'm sure
my collarbones are busted too, but it's when it hits, it sticks. Like it doesn't bounce off any give. A lacrosse ball at least will bounce off a little bit. So if it's on your shin or on your bone, it'll bounce off of it, kind of absorb like a golf ball would. Still equally as painful, but it's in lacrosse you call a block shot a soak or a good eat. Just by getting hit by the ball on accident is a block shot, which you don't do in lacrosse. I would do it because that's just the goalie nature on accident. But yeah, I'd say definitely a hockey puck hurts a lot more from my experience, and I've got hit a couple of times at both.
It might have something to do with the fact that you're freezing your ass off playing hockey too. So you're just naturally already, every single fiber in your body is a little bit colder and a little bit harder than it would be when you're running around playing lacrosse. But I think it's funny because, you talk about when you were growing up and when you were playing and how you became a goalie, how you weren't good enough to play out and to play defenseman or play forward. You get the opportunity to do so. So I think it's kind of interesting. It's almost like that lacrosse kind of fed your need for X's and O's. We've talked, you're a smart guy, you're well-read, you have a master's degree, you went to college at a high level. So you're a guy that you like to learn, you like to be involved in what's going on in the plays, and you're really not that as a goalie. Like, yeah, you kind of know where your defensemen are and you got to know certain things, but you're not nearly as X's and O's as a forward as a traditional defenseman is. But whereas when you're playing lacrosse and you were a long stick defenseman, you got to get in on those plays. You got to actually have a playbook, not just worry about stopping something.
Yep, yeah. Like the cool thing too with lacrosse, when you get to the college level, it's very specific matchups. Meaning, lacrosse, you can have a righty and a lefty, or a right-hand dominant, left-hand dominant. A lot of the Canadians are one hand only. They don't have an offhand. They switch like the box lacrosse players do. But this player favors here and there. So it's a true scouting report based on individual players and what their tendencies are. So as a defenseman, you kind of got to know and what that package is for you're doing on defense, or what that slide package is, or what the rotation is, or what the matchups are, what the mismatches are. It's a beautiful game at that level, and it's very complex and detailed, just like pro hockey is, as far as seam passes, backdoor plays, one-timers here or there. So the longer you play both sports, or I guess any sport, the more you think the game's smarter. So I guess it's more efficiently and smarter, so you can kind of be in position without doing less work, as lazy as that sounds. But that is the reality of it. So for me as a goalie, it was kind of, you're only trying to fill a 4x6 as much as you can with your big body. And for that was, I didn't play the puck very well, so I didn't go back behind that as often unless I had to stop the puck and leave it for the defensemen. But for lacrosse, it's a different game. You kind of more or less responsibilities in different ways, and you get to run around a little bit more and throw your body at some people and kind of take your aggressions off from the hockey season onto the guys in the lacrosse field.
All right, gun to your head question here, okay? Because we know, obviously, hockey, lacrosse, aggressive sports. I'm looking over your right shoulder and I'm seeing a projector. I'm looking over your left shoulder and I'm seeing a giant black square, for those of you checking it out on the YouTube stream or perhaps on the Spotify video. That's clearly a golf simulator. So here's my question. 3 sports, golf, hockey, lacrosse, gun to your head. You have to eliminate them in order. Which one are you eliminating first?
Off of personal experience, no, see, off as a fan.
No. As a player, as someone,
Okay.
go back to your prime playing lacrosse, your prime playing pro. You just forget about money, forget about fame, forget about everything for a second. Just talk about pure enjoyment. You're in college and you can go pro in one of these 3 things. Forget about
number one.
Golf's number one.
Golf's number one.
It's the first one out or it's the first one in?
Golf's first place. I'd say hockey's second place. Lacrosse is third place. But they're 1A, 1B, 1C in that order, I guess. But no, I'm not a good golfer, but I enjoy doing it more because it's fun to sit in the good weather in Minnesota. The 3 months out of the year you can golf up here and have some beers and hang out with some buddies. And, golf's the weird kind of parallel. Golf's a sport you play and compete against yourself,
I hate
at least for the first couple of holes, and then you play in a bad round, then you just kind of get exercise and hang around and just chill and enjoy the weather. But golf, being a goalie, are kind of 2 on island sports, similar to a pitcher, a punter, or a quarterback in football.
Yep.
You can only blame yourself to an extent of not performing well.
Sure.
So it was always kind of a good way to kind of stay competitive and kind of stay in shape and so much. This gets used for more of a movie projector now than golf sometimes, but it's summertime in Minnesota, so maybe when it gets colder, I'll be trying to straighten out my slice and trying to shave some strokes off the handicap for sure.
Especially with a little one on the way, I think you're probably more likely to be playing episodes of Bluey and Paw Patrol rather than.
I think so.
Yeah, that's certainly going to happen.
Or Dora the Explorer, who knows? We'll see. But no, I think the goal for my fiance and soon-to-be wife is plan on is to have our kid turn pro as a golfer. To answer your question initially, so we're trying to create the environment for success for a fun, enjoyable sport that's not hockey or lacrosse. But whatever sport our kid decides to play, we'll support it. But obviously, if we have a background, my fiance has got a background in hockey as well, so definitely have some parents that can coach them up in different positions as well.
All right, so you got golf number 1, hockey number 1B. Caddyshack or Slapshot? Which is the better movie?
Ooh. So my grandpa actually played in the Slapshot era, so it was kind of fun to see that firsthand and have true experiences and him be able to share stories from that era. There's some definite lines in both movies you can't probably say, and some scenes that can't be shown on TV. But I would probably say Slapshot takes the cake for it just because I've seen that movie so many times on the bus rides, and every year it seems to play the same, and you kind of you can quote them off of hand, and we spent some time quoting movies back and forth. So the one Boston Austin had the one TV up front that we could play and actually see movies on, so we got to watch that. I say probably Slapshot takes the cake over Caddyshack, respectively.
See, now I would go the other way, and simply what's weird about that is, so I played a lot of golf in my life. I don't play a lot much anymore. I played a lot as a kid. My parents really wanted me to play golf. I went to golf camps every year. I played a lot of golf. And then when I started getting older and like in high school, I played a lot of golf with my friends in the summer because there was nothing really else to do outside being a traditional hooligan and being a traditional teenager. After that, in college and in those years, I was like, okay, golf is kind of fun, but also at the end of the day, if I just want to drink with my friends, I can just drink with my friends and I don't have to deal with the heat and I don't have to deal with, the being pissed off at myself because I shanked another one into the trees or things like that. So I was just like, why am I doing this? So because of that, you would think that I would go with Slapshot, but I actually would go with Caddyshack because I think it's just the whole movie is too classic. But my question is going to be geared here towards Slapshot. I just watched this movie last night too, so that's kind of where this train of thought is coming from. In your years of traveling junior hockey, pro hockey, have you ever had the chance to make it to Youngstown and see where they shot Slapshot, or make it up to Syracuse and see some of the other scenes where they shot it?
I have not, unfortunately. No, I've driven through and met it played in the new rinks of those towns, but not to see the old ones.
Old ones are still around.
Old still, I never got to play there. The only cool, I guess, old rinks I got to play in or practice in was the old Hershey Arena.
Oh, yeah, that's a cool barn.
Which the Hershey Bears are playing the Giant Center, I think, but they practice in the other old one sometimes. And that rink, my grandpa actually got to play in, 30 years prior. Same down in Tulsa, he played in those small rinks. So, so I guess, no, I didn't get to see those iconic ones, but throughout the same kind of minor league circuits and playing those areas, you got to, experience those rinks at the same time, which is a cool phone call to call your grandpa and say, hey, I finally got to play in the same rink you're at or practice there and see the rink and just envision what it was like in the slap shot era where people are smoking cigarettes in
Yeah.
their locker room all the time. And hockey is still a great game and is somewhat similar, but sure has it changed a lot since then.
Is hockey in your family? Does that come from your grandfather? I mean, was he the first
Yeah.
to kind of do it?
Yeah, first to do it. My dad played too. My grandpa played for he's from up in Winnipeg area. He played for the Winnipeg Jets, the inaugural Jets before they moved down to Phoenix, I think is where they went to the first time, or Atlanta. I can't remember which one it was. But my grandpa played with Bobby Hall back in the day, the WHA, the World Hockey Association. He won an Avco Cup in the 70s, and that was when the Europeans were finally kind of migrating over to North America for pro hockey and the cool stories he can share and the cool memories he has and sharp like attack. And, he played with Don Cherry, played with a bunch of old Hall of Fame guys, Pat Quinn, I can say some stories about that off the record, but I don't want to get him in trouble. He's still around. So, but no, to see, flat sticks when he started with, and they
Yeah.
started curving sticks in Winnipeg. My grandpa was on that team. So that was kind of a cool story to hear and see that they were just screwing around after practice with a broken stick and they was like a fire it. Next day they're blowing torches and under the doors and jamming them up. So those are kind of the cool stories I get to look back, and I'm glad I got to play in Toledo or play in the Kalamazoo's and the minor league spots that he was at, or play in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the first team below the Mason-Dixie line. I'm on the same team that my grandpa played for back in the day. So those are kind of the cool stories, memories that I got to share and continue to play on. And I'm fortunate to have had that opportunity to get to that point in my career.
When your dad, your grandfather get together, whether it's a Christmas or a holiday or a birthday, is 99% of the conversation dominated by hockey, or was it? Or have you guys kind of moved on? I mean, this is 3 generations of hockey players right here. I would imagine that's dominating most of the conversation, or maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, it's some of it. Yeah, my dad played hockey for a bit. He was a professional football player as well too. So I guess I was the 3rd generation professional athlete. Whatever. No, I'm just joking. So naturally, a lot of our conversations kind of revolve around sports and just being athletes and understanding that mindset it takes and that appreciation for football players, basketball, whatever it might be, other athletes. But we also, as bad as it sounds to say, is the sport became a job
Yeah.
as kind of that's what happens for pro hockey where the fun gets kind of taken away. You're good at it. You keep doing it. That's like the ironic situation of minor league systems. And when you're playing hockey or you go back out to the bar for lunch and lunch turns into dinner, turns into late night, you don't want to talk about hockey forever. You want to talk about, a lot of other things, golf, different topics, play Titanic. Well, not my grandpa played Titanic. That'd be kind of weird, but their own versions of that game back then. So you kind of become well-rounded and more cultured through just learning people's stories and learning where they're about from and learning different pockets of the country just because you're on the same team and you like to have beers after practice and kind of hang out.
Isn't the best part when the fun is the job, though? You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I sit here obviously still working in the world of sports, and as much as I'm not a fan anymore as I might have used to have been, especially on game nights. Like after a Friday night where we go into a shootout, when I get home, the last thing I want to do is turn on the West Coast hockey game and watch more hockey. Like I definitely don't follow the sport quite as much. You end up following people, you follow people that you've worked with or that you've called games, in my case, called games for before, and where they're at and what they're doing and how well they're doing. You follow people more than you follow teams. But isn't that the best part? Like when you get the opportunity from your grandfather, your dad, I want to get to him in a second, yourself, being pro athletes, like not many people can say, even though a lot of people can say it, still a percentage of the world can say they got paid to play a game.
That is the good part too, the silver lining. It's not all bad. It's definitely good to get paid to play a sport that, you start at a young age and you continue as long as you can go. The funny thing too is when we play pro, you practice in the mornings, your afternoons are pretty wide open. And we go out to lunch after practice. And we would see people, come from work, go to lunch, and we would say, they have to go back to work and we're done for the day. We're going to go golf or do whatever it is. And you're getting paid good money to do it too. So there is definitely a silver lining for it where it's kind of a cool realization you get to have. And then if you're lucky enough to play at a 3-letter league long enough, you might not have to work right away afterwards. I wasn't that fortunate. So I'm working a normal job, being that sucker who goes back to work after lunch, full circle too. But no, it was not, there's definitely realizations you have along the way, but To circle back to your comment, being a kid from Mayville, North Dakota, who moved to the cities in Minnesota when he was 4, who couldn't skate as a C squirt, to be able to turn into a pro hockey player and retire at 28, definitely a hell of a ride, and a lot of great memories along the way for sure.
You said that your dad was a pro football player, right? What was his?
He played.
What was his experience?
He played arena football.
Okay.
He was going to go to the CFL. My dad's Canadian from Winnipeg, just like my grandpa is. Met my mom in college in North Dakota, and then I was born shortly after. So I guess I kind of might have
ruined the plans.
Ruined the plans, depending on who you ask. But it's not my fault because I, just the result of it. No, just an inside joke there. But no, he played arena football, and I actually remember being a kid and watching my dad play, and seeing him get his knee blown out in one of the games on pinned on the boards, taped it up, came back out. I'm like, my dad's nails, man. Like, so I kind of learned a lot as far as adversity and how to be tough and kind of fight through things by just watching him play. And I'm thankful he got to play as long as he did, because I got to see a lot of cool things. And, in the minors, not a lot of guys have kids, maybe a couple, at least in the leagues that I played in. But the kids who are around are 4, 5, 6 or younger, and you don't get to kind of have those memories. So it was always a cool thing that I got to remember seeing my dad's, last football games, versus my kid being born now and never knowing that I played hockey. So it's definitely kind of the cool little trade-off for it. But to get paid to play a sport and to have it happen for my dad, my grandpa, and have those reference points as well. It's just kind of a very cool experience that not a lot of families get to say they have done, and happy to say they have done it in the past. And hopefully can share that knowledge with people in the future to let them chase their dreams as well.
Is your dad where you get that love of the Minnesota Vikings?
To be honest, your comments about rooting for people is dead on. Like that's the we aren't the true fans. When you become a fan of whoever writes your paycheck, is kind of the cliche joke of the pro hockey or pro sports.
Yeah, but you didn't play pro football.
Grew up a Vikings fan, and then became a Bills fan when I went to school there. Equally, probably as sufferable of fan bases as you could think of on both conferences, as far as not winning playoff games.
But they're also totally different. I'm sorry.
Totally
I'm sorry. You have the crazy
totally
Bills fans, and then you just have the whiny Minnesota fans. I'm sorry. Vikings fans are the worst.
Fair enough. Warranted. We're trying again next year. Kirk Cousins is our boy. We're on board with him, even though all the bandwagon fans are on him with the quarterback Netflix series, which did him good. But no, when I went to Buffalo for school, I didn't take a visit, just kind of showed up day one. I was like, all right, I'm here for 4 years, let's go, before the transfer things went. Went to one tailgate and I saw Bills Mafia, and I was like, damn, this is my kind of people,
Yeah.
So you root for the city of Buffalo to win a championship, and then you also root for the city of Minnesota because they've never won one. So it's kind of the lovable losers, I guess, on both sides, which is probably the best way to describe my career as well, too. So I guess you're just a rooting for punishment, some aspect of it.
At least you have a couple championships under your belt.
True.
Meanwhile, Buffalo, Minnesota, they need a couple more.
We're due.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. It's funny you say that. And I don't know where you were, because I knew you were a Minnesota Vikings fan and a diehard-ish Vikings fan. And because Kenny Orlando and I went to an Eagles-Vikings game at US Bank the year that they came through Minnesota, the year that we were all together in Austin. I remember getting those tickets. We were way up in the nosebleeds. It's the first time I ever saw a game in a dome. So I don't know where you were. I don't know if you had gone home for a short little spell, because I think it was during a break. I don't know if it was during a Top Prospects break or what it might have been. But we went to a game, and you would have been there. And honestly, I'm so thankful that you weren't, because it would have been two miserable Eagles fans from Pennsylvania driving home with just the loudmouth Keegan in the back going, yeah, we won, blah, blah, blah. Because I would have been insufferable. I would have been absolutely insufferable the whole ride up there, because Super Bowl 52, the Eagles won the Super Bowl over the Patriots, was on US Bank. That's where it was played. That was the venue.
Yep.
And I remember just going, that's the main reason I wanted to go up there. Not only did I want to go see an Eagles game, but I wanted to go up there and I wanted to go, this is the field. This is the field where we finally got it done. So I would have been insufferable going up. And then the Eagles got shellacked. I mean, it was, Thielen was still there. He had just a monster day. Monster. I think he had 2 touchdowns, 150, 180 yards, something ridiculous. I was miserable coming back. So if you were in the car, I might have thrown you out on the side of 55. That might have been what happened. Or 35, or whatever the highway is.
Yeah, 35. It makes you feel any better. I was probably having tater tot hot dish at my mom's house watching the game on TV. So another callback to Minnesota food for there. But no, it's that was the cool part, man. Like us coaching in Austin and Kenny Orlando. Shout out to Kenny Orlando too. Was a young gun too, trying to go up in his career. And it was just there was going to be 3 guys going to the bars after the games just to hang out, watch football, and shoot the breeze and play darts and whatever. And that definitely made that year way more enjoyable to have those outside of work environment fun times versus kind of just stuck in your own way and no one to hang out with on that side of it. So definitely enjoyable time. And that would have been a sad car ride to be a part of. So I'm glad I wasn't in that anyways. Too many bad vibes there.
Well, Keegs, this has been so much fun catching up with you because honestly, when I look back at my career, that year in Austin was just something else. And it had everything to do with you and Kenny and Steve. And we had a lot of fun because, circumstances, COVID, the world shutting down. I remember playing, do you remember playing, we were throwing some weird dice game in Kenny's house, like the night before the whole world shut down. It was Kenny's girlfriend Amanda's birthday. So the 4 of us are all hanging out in his house and we're literally throwing dice.
Beer die.
Thank you. We're throwing dice at a table and like trying to get it past the team on the other side. And you, a former professional goalie, me, I've suited up a few times in my life as a goalie. So we were okay and they were terrible. And then the next day the world shut down. So when I think of that year, when I think of my career, I think a lot back to that. We've had a lot of good times from playing pool at the bakery, going down to Hootenoli's and playing pull tabs like you mentioned earlier. There was that time that you dropped an entire case of beer on my floor, walking out the front door as we were going to the bar. The beer case was wet. You turned me on to some music.
Tragically Hip, baby.
I was waiting for it. Tragically Hip. Shout out to Tragically Hip. I love Tragically Hip. To this day, it was a lot of fun. And just to hear that you're doing so well, that you've moved on from the pro life, you've moved on out of sports, you're doing so well, a new one coming on the way, your first coming on the way, engaged, everything's going well in Minnesota. I'm really happy to hear that. I'm so thankful that you took the time that we could just chat and talk about our lives, over the last 3 years. And it's been a lot of fun. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And thanks for the trip down memory lane and a couple smiles on the face, a couple stories I haven't thought of in a long time. And here's to the next time we can get in person together and do it all over again.
I'm not going to let you go that easily because I am going to ask you one final question. What is your defining memory of Austin, Minnesota and the Austin Bruins? Defining memory. It's a tough one. I'll give you that. So I'll let you take a second or two to think about it. But when you got one, you let me know.
I would probably go way back to my first year, or my last year juniors, the first year the team existed. It was a Pink to Rink night, or it was a teddy bear toss night, maybe both. And the fans kind of early on in the year didn't really know what offsides was, cheering at the wrong kind of times. But right around Christmas time, right around teddy bear toss, we thankfully scored a goal, and the Bears flew over, and the crowd went nuts, and the horn was blaring. And just to look around and be the old junior hockey guy last year playing, to see that moment, that was pretty cool. And it's cool to see how it's evolved into now today, and the same traditions going along, and then probably the same intro song of the Ba with the Ba for the intro songs. As repetitive as that got, that still get the goosebumps going. And the Austin folks know, or the Austin players who've gone through there will definitely know what I'm talking about when I bring up that song.
For sure, and we'll find out if they go ahead and they stick with some of those timely traditions, as of course ownership has recently changed hands. We'll see what they stick with and what they decide to change and revamp, so it'll be fun to keep an eye when you talk about rooting for people. In this case, all of the kids that we were involved with in Austin as coach or as broadcaster are no longer there. In fact, I'm running into some of them now here in the pro game. I mean, Joe Mishak just spent some time with the Florida Panthers at development camp. Florida Panthers, of course, affiliated with the Checkers. Yep. So that was really cool to see his name all over social media. But for us, we're rooting for the town, right? We're rooting for that team, that logo, that bear head. I think I'm wearing it. I think I got it on right here, as a matter of fact. And that was completely on. I just threw on a T-shirt today. I did not do that on purpose. You're rooting for those people. You're rooting for that town because the players are going to come and go. You just want them to do well. And they made it to the Robertson Cup this past year. Couldn't win it. That's the third time they've been there and they couldn't win it. But they'll get it soon. And in the meantime, the rest of us, life marches on. Keegs, it's been too long. We got to chit-chat a little bit more. I got to get you out here, down here to Charlotte. It's an amazing city. Next time I'm up in Minnesota, I'm going to look you up. I'm going to stay with you. You can put up a cot right there in that golf simulator for me if that works.
You got a bed whenever you need it, TJ. You're always welcome here in second God's country, I guess, next to North Dakota. And thanks again for having me on, and looking forward to the next time you get out here.
Awesome. Thanks, Keegs. That was former professional goaltender and coach Keegan Asmundson, a good friend of mine. We've been through a lot over our years, only 1 year together, but still, the stories continue to come on. My name is TJ Chillot. I am a professional play-by-play broadcaster. This is Chillin With Chillot. Thank you so much for joining us here on this episode number 4. If you haven't already, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe wherever you are watching. Take care. We'll see you next time.